Imagine being 13 years old, invisible to the world, with no official records of your existence. Now imagine accidentally stumbling into a billionaire's penthouse and witnessing something you were never meant to see. A group of powerful people pressuring a confused old man to sign away his fortune. What would you do? When Mia Rodriguez shouted, "Don't sign that," to a man she'd never met, she had no idea she was uncovering a conspiracy that had already claimed her father's life. A desperate delivery girl with nothing to lose against an organization willing to kill to protect their darkest secret. They found a way to steal time itself, taking years from the poor to give to the wealthy. Now Mia must race against time to expose the truth before she and her grandmother become the next victims to disappear. If you've ever felt powerless against a system that seems rigged against the vulnerable, this story will shake you to your core. Follow our channel for more gripping tales of ordinary heroes facing extraordinary circumstances. Like and comment to let us know where you're watching from, and join our community of viewers who believe that sometimes the smallest voice can speak the most powerful truth. The clock read 6:12 a.m. when Mia pushed open the door of the small trailer she shared with her grandmother. The worn soles of her sneakers barely made a sound against the metal steps, each one creaking under the weight of a child who carried far more than just her tattered backpack. Ohio's bitter wind cut through her thin jacket like it was made of paper, carrying with it the faint smell of manure from the surrounding fields. The flat tires of her bicycle made a rhythmic thump-thump against the gravel path, the soundtrack to her thoughts this morning, as they were every morning. Blood. That was her first memory of the day, not her own but her grandmother's, coughing it into a handkerchief when she thought Mia wasn't looking. The spotted cloth hastily stuffed into a pocket, the smile that followed, brittle as autumn leaves. 3 deliveries today, mi pequeña. Her grandmother's voice still strong despite everything. The last one pays triple. It will get us through the week. Inside Mia's ripped backpack, 3 carefully packed containers of homemade chicken soup, a notebook filled with English exercises she'd hidden whenever police cars slowed near their trailer, and an envelope she wasn't supposed to know about. Medical bills with red final notice stamps across them. Mia was 13 years old, the daughter of undocumented Mexican immigrants, surviving by making deliveries of her grandmother's homemade chicken soup to workers around the region. She'd never been to school, not officially, but she could read, better than most people realized. She taught herself by studying market flyers and street signs, a spy of language, collecting words like others collected baseball cards. Her father had disappeared 3 years ago while attempting to cross back over the border to bring her younger brother to join them. Since then, her mother's silence had become a hole that ached worse than hunger. 2 months after he vanished, her mother had walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and swallowed every pill they had. The landlord found her 3 days later. "You eat before you go," her grandmother insisted, pushing a small bowl toward her. "No arguments." Mia nodded, though she'd slipped most of it back into the pot when Abuela wasn't looking. The old woman needed it more than she did. Besides, Mia had become an expert at ignoring the gnawing in her stomach. "The last delivery," her grandmother said, lowering her voice as though sharing a dangerous secret. "It's for the Grand Willow Hotel." Mia's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. The Grand Willow wasn't just any hotel. It was where people with real money stayed. Movie stars, politicians, the kind of people who wouldn't look twice at someone like her. "They called specifically for my soup," her grandmother continued, pride momentarily brightening her worn face. "For a Mr. Coleman in the penthouse suite. They're paying $300, Mia, $300. For a moment, Mia saw what $300 meant. Antibiotics, a month's lot rent, maybe even the down payment on those second-hand textbooks the woman at the library had set aside for her. "I won't even have to go inside, Abuela," Mia promised, though her stomach tightened at the thought of the gleaming lobby she'd only ever glimpsed through glass doors. "I'll just leave it with the front desk." Her grandmother hesitated, then nodded. "Be invisible, mi vida, like I taught you." As Mia pedaled through the awakening town, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her narrow shoulders. The soup containers were secure in her backpack's main compartment, wrapped in towels to keep them warm. But there was something else weighing on her. The strange envelope that had appeared on their doorstep yesterday, addressed to the Coleman estate. No return address. Mia had hidden it in her backpack's side pocket, meaning to ask at the post office where to redirect it. The truck came out of nowhere. 1 minute she was pedaling carefully along the shoulder of Route 27, and the next, an 18-wheeler roared past so close that the wind of its passing nearly knocked her off her bike. She swerved, overcorrected, and tumbled onto the grassy embankment. The soup containers, thankfully, remained intact. But as she gathered herself and checked her belongings, she noticed the side pocket of her backpack had torn open. The envelope for the Coleman estate was gone. Panic seized her. That envelope might have been important. What if it contained money? Or worse, what if it contained bad news that now wouldn't reach its recipient because of her carelessness? The Grand Willow Hotel loomed ahead, its gleaming glass facade reflecting the morning sun like some impossible castle from the stories her father used to tell. 15 floors of luxury she could barely comprehend. Bellhops in crisp uniforms. Revolving doors that probably cost more than their entire trailer. As Mia approached on her battered bicycle, she tried to make herself smaller, insignificant. The doorman didn't even glance her way, as if she were truly invisible. She locked her bike to a nearby rack, straightened her jacket, and brushed the dirt from her jeans where she'd fallen. "You're just delivering soup," she whispered to herself. "That's all." But as she approached the service entrance as instructed, a woman in a business suit rushed past, bumping into her hard enough to spin her halfway around. "Watch it," the woman snapped, not even breaking stride. The collision sent Mia stumbling through the wrong door, into a corridor lined with elevators. The guest elevators, not the service ones. Before she could retreat, a group of men in expensive suits entered behind her, deep in conversation, creating a barrier between her and the exit. "Hold that elevator," one called out. Mia found herself swept inside a gleaming elevator car with mirrored walls and gold accents. She pressed herself into the corner, clutching her backpack, hoping to remain unnoticed. The businessmen continued their intense conversation, pressing the button for the 18th floor, the penthouse level. The number illuminated in red, and Mia's heart pounded against her ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to go to the service entrance, hand over the soup, collect the money, and leave. Invisible. When the doors opened at the penthouse level, one of the men in suits glanced at her, really noticing her for the first time. "You, intern. Do you have the documents?" Before Mia could explain that she wasn't an intern, that she was just delivering soup, the man grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. "Hurry up. Mr. Coleman is waiting." And just like that, Mia, the girl who officially didn't exist in any government database, who had never gone to school, whose birth certificate was locked in a drawer in a country she barely remembered, was being ushered into the most exclusive suite of the Grand Willow Hotel, mistaken for someone she wasn't. The last thing she saw before the penthouse doors closed behind her was the lost envelope she'd been carrying, now sitting on a side table near the elevator, as if waiting for her to discover what twist of fate had brought her here, and what secrets it contained that would soon change her life forever. The Grand Willow Hotel's penthouse corridor felt like another world. The carpet beneath Mia's worn sneakers was so thick that her footsteps made no sound at all, unlike the creaking metal floor of the trailer that announced every midnight trip to the bathroom. The walls gleamed with what looked like actual gold trim, and the air smelled of something Mia couldn't name but associated with the perfume counters she hurried past in department stores. "Move it," hissed the man in the charcoal suit, his hand still gripping her upper arm tight enough to leave marks. "We're already behind schedule." Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. Her grandmother's warnings echoed in her mind. Stay invisible, don't draw attention, never look important people in the eye. Yet here she was, being dragged deeper into a place where people like her were only supposed to empty trash cans or change sheets, and only through service entrances. "I'm just delivering soot," she began, but the man cut her off. "Save it. Everyone's waiting. The associates from Brenner and Whitehall are already inside." He glanced at her backpack. "You have the documents, right?" Before Mia could answer, they reached a set of double doors with Presidential Suite engraved on a gold plaque. The man rapped his knuckles against the polished wood and the doors swung open to reveal a suite larger than 3 trailers combined. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the entire city of Columbus like a living map. Sunlight poured across leather furniture that probably cost more than everything Mia's family had ever owned. 7 men and 1 woman stood in various positions around the room, all in expensive suits, all wearing expressions of barely concealed impatience. "Finally," said a tall man with silver temples checking his Rolex. "We've been waiting 20 minutes. The man who'd grabbed Mia released her arm and straightened his tie. "Traffic," and the intern was late with the final documents. He nodded toward Mia, who stood frozen, clutching her backpack with the soup container still inside. The silver-templed man narrowed his eyes. "You're not the usual paralegal." A woman with razor-sharp blonde hair cut in. "It doesn't matter. We're on a schedule. The documents, please." Mia's mouth went dry. The weight of the soup containers in her backpack suddenly felt like cement blocks. These people thought she was delivering legal papers of some kind. Any second now, they would realize their mistake, and then what? Would they call security? The police? Immigration? "The documents," the blonde woman repeated, extending a manicured hand. That's when Mia noticed something, a detail so small she nearly missed it. On the woman's wrist was a thin gold bracelet with a distinctive charm, a stylized eagle with what looked like a medical caduceus in its talons. The exact same symbol she'd seen on the envelope that had fallen from her backpack earlier. Before she could process this connection, another door opened across the suite. An elderly man in an expensive bathrobe emerged, supported by a male nurse. His skin had the waxy pallor of serious illness, but his eyes, a startling blue, seemed alert enough. "Is that her?" the old man asked, his voice surprisingly strong despite his frail appearance. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Mia, who wanted nothing more than to disappear into the luxurious carpet beneath her feet. "Mr. Coleman," the silver-templed man said smoothly. "This is just the intern bringing the final paperwork. Your granddaughter's flight was delayed, but she sends her regards." Something flickered across the old man's face. Disappointment, perhaps, or suspicion. He studied Mia with those piercing blue eyes. "She looks young for an intern." The blonde woman laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "It's that take your daughter to work thing. Ridiculously unprofessional, but apparently it's policy now." She shot Mia a warning glance. "The documents, please. We're all very busy people." Panic rose in Mia's throat. She had no documents, only soup that was getting colder by the second. She was about to confess everything when the nurse helped Mr. Coleman to a seat at a large table covered with papers. The old man moved like every step caused him pain. "Water," he requested, and the nurse poured him a glass from a crystal pitcher. Next to the glass, Mia noticed a small pill cup containing a single white tablet. Beside it sat a half-eaten breakfast, toast, fruit, and a glass of orange juice with a peculiar film on its surface. "Before we proceed," the silver-templed man said, sliding a thick document toward Mr. Coleman, "we need your signature on the transfer of assets to the Rebirth Foundation. It's the paperwork we discussed yesterday." The old man frowned. "Yesterday is unclear to me." "Just a formality," the blonde woman added quickly. "Remember, for the medical research, the treatment that could help your condition?" As they spoke, Mia caught sight of a framed photograph on a side table. It showed a younger Mr. Coleman with his arm around a beautiful young woman who looked to be in her 20s. The resemblance between them was unmistakable. His granddaughter, presumably. But where was she now? And why was there tension in the room when she was mentioned? The silver-templed man placed an expensive pen in Mr. Coleman's trembling hand. "Just sign at the marked tabs, all 15 of them. Then we can all move on with our day." 15 signatures. 15 places where this clearly unwell man was being asked to sign away something. Mia didn't understand the legal terminology flying around the room, but she recognized the urgency, the pressure. It reminded her of the day a similar-looking man had come to their food cart, pressuring her grandmother to sign away their permit because of a health code violation that mysteriously disappeared after they paid a consulting fee. Mr. Coleman squinted at the document, then at the people surrounding him. He seemed confused, vulnerable. The blonde woman placed a hand on his shoulder in what appeared to be a gesture of comfort, but looked more like she was holding him in place. "Your treatment depends on this funding arrangement," she said softly. "Remember?" As Mr. Coleman raised the pen to the paper, Mia spotted the name on his water glass. Coleman. And below it, in smaller letters, Triazolam 0.5, 8 a.m. That's when she remembered where she'd seen the name on the blonde woman's bracelet. Brenner. The same name as the lawyer who had threatened her grandmother years ago. The same name that had been on eviction notices posted on their neighbors' doors. The connections formed in her mind like lightning. The insistence on signatures, the missing granddaughter, the medication, the confused old man. Without thinking, Mia blurted out the only words that made sense in that moment. "Don't sign that." Her voice rang through the luxurious suite, bouncing off marble and glass, hanging in the air like a gunshot. 8 pairs of eyes locked onto her, expressions ranging from shock to fury. Mr. Coleman's pen froze millimeters above the paper. And in that frozen moment of silence, the soup containers in Mia's backpack chose the perfect moment to tip over, sending the unmistakable smell of her grandmother's chicken soup wafting through the room of power brokers and legal sharks. The words hung in the air like suspended glass, fragile and dangerous. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. The pen in Mr. Coleman's trembling hand remained frozen above the signature line, a drop of ink slowly forming at its tip. Then, like a spell breaking, chaos erupted. "Who the hell is this girl?" The silver-templed man's face flushed crimson as he slammed his palm on the mahogany table. "Security. Get security up here now." The blonde woman with the Brenner bracelet moved with reptilian swiftness, her manicured hand closing around Mia's wrist with surprising strength. Her perfume, something expensive that smelled like money and cruelty, enveloped Mia as she leaned in close. "You stupid, ignorant little nobody," she hissed, her voice low enough that only Mia could hear. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Mia tried to pull away, but the woman's grip tightened, her fingernails digging into Mia's skin like tiny knives. Panic fluttered in Mia's chest, a trapped bird beating against her ribcage. "I'm just delivering soup," Mia stammered, her voice small in the cavernous suite. "I'm not whoever you think I am." "Oh, we know exactly who you are," said another man, his face pinched with disgust as he eyed her worn clothes and scuffed shoes. "A piece of gutter trash who's about to learn a hard lesson about interfering in matters that don't concern her." Mr. Coleman's nurse, a stocky man with close-cropped hair, stepped between them. "That's enough. There's a minor present." "A minor who just derailed a $15 million transaction," snapped the silver-templed man, advancing on Mia like a predator. "Where did you come from? Who sent you? Was it Schaefer's people?" Before Mia could answer, the backpack slipped from her shoulder. The soup containers, already leaking, hit the plush carpet with a wet thud. Golden chicken broth spread across the cream-colored fibers like a slowly expanding stain, carrying with it bits of carrot and celery and the unmistakable scent of her grandmother's secret recipe. "She's nothing but a delivery girl," the blonde woman said, her lip curling as she released Mia's wrist with a shove. "Look at her. She probably can't even read the documents she just interrupted." "I can read," Mia shot back, then immediately wished she hadn't as every eye in the room focused on her with renewed intensity. The silver-templed man stalked closer, looming over her like a tower. "Then perhaps you'd like to explain to us all what exactly you think you just saved Mr. Coleman from? What vast legal expertise are you bringing to this situation, Miss Rodriguez?" Mia supplied, then immediately regretted giving her real name. I just thought..." "You didn't think at all," he cut her off. "You're an ignorant child who's wandered into adult business. Mr. Coleman has a rare condition that requires experimental treatment. Treatment that can only proceed with proper funding from the Rebirth Foundation. Treatment that you just jeopardized with your outburst." Shame burned hot in Mia's cheeks. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe these people really were trying to help the old man. Who was she to judge? A girl who lived in a trailer and delivered soup for pocket change. But then Mr. Coleman spoke, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Let her speak. All heads turned toward the old man. He was staring at Mia with those piercing blue eyes, eyes that seemed to see right through the layers of pretense in the room. Sir, this is completely unnecessary, the blonde woman began, but Mr. Coleman raised a hand, silencing her instantly. Why shouldn't I sign these papers, young lady? He asked Mia directly. What did you see that concerned you? 8 pairs of eyes bored into her. Mia felt her throat closing up. She glanced at the spilled soup, at her scuffed shoes, at the document with its intimidating wall of legal text. What did she know about any of this? She was nobody, invisible, a girl who officially didn't exist. I don't know the details, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But my abuela, my grandmother, she always says to never sign anything when people are rushing you, and... She hesitated, then pointed to the medication cup. That pill. It's still there, but you seem confused, and there's something in your juice that looks wrong. The nurse picked up the orange juice glass, examining it with a frown. Ridiculous, the silver-templed man scoffed. Mr. Coleman, we've waited long enough. Either you sign these documents now, or the funding offer is withdrawn. Your treatment window is closing as we speak. Mr. Coleman continued to stare at Mia, something like recognition flickering in his gaze. You remind me of someone, he murmured. Those eyes. Have we met before? Before Mia could answer, 2 security guards burst into the suite. The blonde woman pointed at Mia. This girl snuck in under false pretenses and disrupted a private business meeting. Remove her immediately. The larger of the 2 guards, a mountain of a man with a neck like a fire hydrant, grabbed Mia by the shoulder. Let's go, kid. Now. Wait, mister. Coleman tried to stand, but his legs gave out, and he sank back into his chair. I want to hear what else she has to say. But the decision had been made. The guard marched Mia toward the door, his grip firm, but not cruel. The second guard collected her backpack, grimacing at the soup leaking from its bottom. As she was being escorted out, Mia caught one last glimpse of the room. The silver-templed man was already back at Mr. Coleman's side, pen extended. The blonde woman was on her phone, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. The nurse was being led to a corner by one of the other men, their conversation intense but inaudible. And Mr. Coleman was looking directly at her, a strange mixture of confusion and clarity in his expression. Their eyes met across the room, and something passed between them. An understanding, perhaps, or a question without words. Then the doors closed, and Mia found herself in the corridor, being marched toward the elevator by the security guard. You've got some nerve, kid, the guard muttered as he jabbed the down button. Those aren't people you mess with. Who are they? Mia asked, her voice small in the hushed corridor. The guard glanced down at her, his professional mask slipping just enough to reveal a hint of sympathy. People who own people like me, and who would squash people like you without blinking. He hesitated, then added in a lower voice, whatever you saw in there, forget it, for your own good. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. As the doors slid open, Mia caught sight of her reflection in the mirrored interior, a small, disheveled girl with frightened eyes and soup stains on her jacket. A nobody, a ghost in the system. But ghosts, her father used to tell her, could sometimes move through walls that stopped everyone else. The security guard handed her the dripping backpack as they reached the lobby. Here, and don't come back, you understand? Next time, there won't be any gentle escort. Mia nodded, clutching the ruined backpack to her chest. As she stumbled out through the revolving door into the harsh daylight, her mind raced. What had she just witnessed? Why had the old man looked at her that way as if he recognized her? And why had the name Brenner made her stomach twist with such certainty that something was wrong? Standing beside her battered bicycle, Mia made a decision. She couldn't go home yet. Not with these questions burning in her mind. Not with the image of Mr. Coleman's confused face haunting her thoughts. She needed answers. And the first place to look, she realized, was at the envelope she'd lost. The one that had somehow brought her into this strange intersection of wealth, power, and what increasingly felt like danger. The Columbus Public Library stood like a sanctuary of brick and stone against the afternoon sky, its wide steps leading up to doors that promised knowledge, and more importantly, free Wi-Fi and public computers. Mia climbed the steps slowly, her legs heavy with exhaustion and her mind racing with questions that refused to quiet down. Inside, the air conditioning raised goosebumps on her arms, a stark contrast to the summer heat outside. The soup-stained backpack had been abandoned in a dumpster 3 blocks back, along with the ruined containers. Her grandmother would be worried sick by now, but Mia couldn't go home yet. Not until she understood what she had stumbled into. The kind-faced librarian at the information desk, Ms. Winters according to her name badge, raised an eyebrow at Mia's disheveled appearance, but asked no questions when the girl requested a 30-minute computer session. In a world that had taught Mia to expect suspicion, this small act of trust felt like a rare gift. "Station 7 is open," Ms. Winters said, sliding a numbered card across the desk. "Just remember, no social media and no downloads." Mia nodded gratefully and made her way to the computer tucked in the corner of the reference section. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. Where to begin? What to search for? The names and details swirled in her mind like leaves caught in a storm drain. She typed, "Coleman family, Ohio wealthy." The search results populated the screen. Articles about real estate developments, charity galas, and hospital wing dedications. Richard Coleman, it seemed, wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the state's richest residents, with a fortune built on pharmaceuticals and medical technology. His company, Coleman Medical Innovations, held patents on dozens of devices and medications. Mia clicked through to an article from the Columbus Business Journal, dated just 8 months earlier. The headline made her breath catch. CMI founder Richard Coleman steps down amid health concerns. Granddaughter Amanda to take helm. The accompanying photo showed a younger, healthier Richard Coleman standing beside a striking young woman with his same piercing blue eyes. Amanda Coleman, 27, Yale law graduate and heir apparent to the Coleman empire. The woman from the photo in the hotel suite. But where was Amanda now? Why wasn't she at her grandfather's side while strangers pressured him to sign away? What exactly? Mia typed, "Rebirth Foundation." This search yielded fewer results, a sparse website with vague mission statements about advancing human health potential and pioneering age-related research. The foundation had been established just 14 months ago, with limited public information about its leadership or funding sources. A knot formed in Mia's stomach. She remembered the envelope that had fallen from her backpack, the one with the same eagle and caduceus symbol as the bracelet worn by the blonde woman. It couldn't be coincidence. She tried another search, Rebirth Foundation clinical trials. The 5th result down made her blood run cold. It was a forum post on a patient advocacy website titled, "Warning, Rebirth Foundation Experimental Treatments, My Experience." The post, written by someone using the username TruthSeeker40199, detailed allegations of a pharmaceutical trial gone wrong. The foundation had allegedly recruited economically vulnerable people, mostly immigrants and those without health insurance, for revolutionary anti-aging treatments. The poster claimed these treatments had severe, undisclosed side effects, and that when patients tried to withdraw from the trials, they were threatened with legal action or worse. The post ended abruptly, mid-sentence. A moderator note indicated the user's account had been deleted shortly after publishing. Mia's hands grew clammy as she scrolled through the comments. Most were skeptical, dismissing the post as conspiracy theory. But one comment from a user named Mediwhistle stood out. "The clinic near Hamilton Ave? I worked maintenance there, saw things that didn't add up, looking for others who can confirm." Hamilton Avenue. That was just a few miles from the trailer park where Mia lived with her grandmother. A coincidence? Maybe. but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up all the same. She searched. Coleman Medical Innovations Clinical Trials Immigrants. The results included several news articles about pharmaceutical companies using questionable recruitment practices for clinical trials, though none mentioned Coleman's company specifically. But one link caught her eye, a local news story from 3 years ago about a janitor at a clinical research facility who had gone missing after allegedly raising concerns about patient treatment. The facility, operated by Brenner Medical Research, a subsidiary of a larger pharmaceutical company. The missing janitor's name, Rafael Rodriguez, Mia's father. The world seemed to tilt beneath her, her throat constricted, making it hard to breathe. She stared at the grainy staff photo accompanying the article, her father in his gray maintenance uniform, his familiar gentle smile, standing in front of a building she'd passed 100 times without knowing its significance. With trembling fingers, she clicked to enlarge the image. In the background, partially cropped but still visible, stood a man in a lab coat. Though younger and with darker hair, the face was unmistakable, the silver-templed man from Coleman's suite. "Your computer session is ending in 5 minutes," the automated system announced, jolting Mia back to the present. She quickly searched for one more term. Amanda Coleman missing. No direct hits appeared, but she found a small mention in a gossip column from 2 weeks ago. Heiress Amanda Coleman has reportedly taken a sudden wellness retreat at an undisclosed location, postponing her scheduled ascension to the CMI leadership. Sources close to the family deny rumors of health issues, stating only that the young executive is taking necessary time for herself before assuming such significant responsibilities. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Amanda disappears, and suddenly her grandfather is being pressured to sign documents transferring assets to a shadowy foundation linked to questionable clinical trials, possibly the same ones her father had discovered before he vanished. "Time's up, dear." Ms. Winters appeared at her shoulder, her kind face creased with concern. "Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." In a way, Mia had, the ghost of connections she'd never recognized, of a truth too large and terrifying to fully comprehend. Her father hadn't simply disappeared while crossing the border. He had discovered something. Something about the Rebirth Foundation, about Coleman Medical Innovations, about Brenner. Something worth silencing him for. "I'm fine," Mia lied, quickly closing the browser. "Thank you." As she made her way out of the library, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the steps. Her mind whirled with fragments of information, trying to assemble them into a coherent picture. The foundation, the clinical trials, her father, Amanda Coleman. The documents Mr. Coleman was being pressured to sign. Stepping onto the sidewalk, Mia nearly collided with a sleek black town car that had pulled up to the curb. The driver's window lowered, revealing a face she recognized, the security guard from the Grand Willow. "Get in," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Now, before they find you." "Who?" Mia asked, taking an instinctive step back. The guard's eyes darted nervously up and down the street. "The people who never get old, the ones your father tried to expose." At the mention of her father, Mia froze. How did this man know about Rafael? "I don't have time to explain here," the guard continued. "But I knew your father. He tried to warn people. Now they're after you too." As if to punctuate his words, a second black car turned the corner 2 blocks away, moving with deliberate slowness. Mia stood at the precipice of a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. Trust this stranger, or run? But she'd seen the look in Mr. Coleman's eyes. The recognition, the confusion, the silent plea. And she'd seen her father's face in that photo, connected to a mystery that had swallowed him whole 3 years ago. She opened the car door and got in. The town car smelled of leather and something antiseptic, like hospital corridors. As it pulled away from the curb, Mia pressed herself against the door, one hand on the handle, ready to jump if necessary. Through the tinted windows, Columbus blurred into streaks of concrete and glass. "My name is Marcus," the security guard said, his eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. His uniform was gone, replaced by jeans and a dark blue button-down. I worked at the Grand Willow for 3 years, but after today, that job's finished. How do you know my father? Mia demanded, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. Marcus took a sharp right turn, then another, navigating a pattern that seemed designed to lose any followers. We met at Brenner's research facility. I was night security before the hotel gig. Raphael, your dad, he cleaned the laboratories after hours. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He wasn't supposed to look at the research documents. None of us were. But Raphael, he was smart. Educated back in Mexico, right? Engineering degree? Mia nodded slowly. Her father had often helped her with math problems far beyond her grade level, sketching diagrams on napkins to explain concepts. He was a civil engineer in Oaxaca. He noticed things in those labs, inconsistencies in the trial reports, patient files that didn't match the official records. Marcus checked his mirrors again. He started taking photos with a disposable camera. Old school, smart, no digital trail. The car turned onto a narrow street lined with warehouses, their loading docks shuttered for the day. Mia's pulse quickened. Where was he taking her? 2 nights before he disappeared, Raphael showed me something. A photo of a patient chart with 2 birth dates, one real, one impossible. The patient was 87 according to their driver's license, but the medical chart listed them as 63. Same person, 24-year gap. That's not possible, Mia whispered. That's what I said. Marcus pulled into an alley between 2 abandoned-looking buildings and killed the engine. The next night he brought me more. Photos of before and after files on patients. People with advanced Alzheimer's suddenly showing dramatic improvements. Terminal cancer patients in remission. Elderly subjects with renewed tissue elasticity and cognitive function. They found a cure for aging? Even saying it out loud felt absurd. Marcus's laugh was bitter. Not a cure, a transfer. A transfer? That's what your father called it. He found research notes about biological energy redistribution. Theoretical stuff about transferring cellular regeneration capacity from one subject to another. Marcus turned in his seat to face her directly. They weren't curing these rich patients, Mia. They were taking years from other people and giving them to the wealthy. A chill ran through Mia that had nothing to do with the car's air conditioning. That's not scientifically possible. Maybe not according to textbooks, but your father saw the evidence. Young, healthy immigrants would enter the trials. Months later, they'd age decades overnight. Memory loss, organ deterioration, cellular breakdown. His voice cracked, while the elite clients got younger, stronger. The warehouse shadows seemed to deepen around them. Mia thought of Mr. Coleman, his frail body at odds with his sharp blue eyes. The way everyone spoke about his treatment. The night Raphael disappeared, he told me he was going to contact a reporter. Someone at the Dispatch who'd written about medical ethics before. Marcus rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older than he had in the hotel. Next day, his locker was empty, his ID badge deactivated. When I asked, they said he'd quit without notice, gone back to Mexico. But he didn't, Mia said, her voice hardly audible. He was trying to cross back to get my brother. He never made it. Marcus nodded grimly. They made sure of that. Why are you telling me this now? Why help me? Because you did what I didn't have the courage to do. You spoke up. His eyes met hers, filled with a mixture of shame and resolve. I've been watching this happen for 3 years, too scared to say anything. Then you walk in, a kid, and stand up to them. Mia remembered the envelope that had fallen from her backpack. There was a document. It had the Rebirth Foundation logo on it. The same symbol as a bracelet one of the women was wearing. Leslie Brenner, Marcus confirmed. Richard Coleman's goddaughter and the lead researcher at Rebirth. The envelope, do you still have it? Mia shook her head. It fell out of my backpack before I went up to the penthouse. I saw it on a table near the elevator when they were pulling me inside. Marcus's expression shifted to alarm. We need to get it back. If it contains what I think it does, the transfer protocol documents, it could expose everything. But how? I can't exactly walk back into the Grand Willow. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a hotel key card. This is why I came looking for you. After your scene in the penthouse, Coleman refused to sign anything. Kept asking about the delivery girl with sad eyes. They're keeping him isolated now, probably accelerating whatever they have planned. He handed her the key card. This is a master service key. It'll get you into the staff elevator and most back areas. The envelope was on the penthouse level by the guest elevators. If you can get it. A sharp crack interrupted him, the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. Both turned to see a small object bounce across the car's hood, a rock wrapped in paper. Marcus was already restarting the engine. We've been made. Hang on. The car lurched forward as Mia grabbed the wrapped rock. She unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. Written in block letters, "We have your grandmother." Panic clawed at Mia's throat. My abuela. They know about her. Address? Marcus demanded, speeding out of the alley. Sunshine Valley Trailer Park, Lot 17, but we can't just... We have to. Now. The drive to the trailer park took 11 excruciating minutes. Mia's mind raced through horrific scenarios. Her grandmother hurt, frightened, or worse. When they pulled up to the faded blue trailer, 2 black SUVs were already parked outside. Stay in the car, Marcus ordered, but Mia was already out the door, running. She burst through the trailer door to find her grandmother sitting calmly at their tiny kitchen table. Across from her sat Leslie Brenner, the blonde woman from the penthouse, and a man in an expensive suit Mia didn't recognize. Ah, there she is, Brenner said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Your granddaughter has had quite the adventure today, Mrs. Rodriguez. Abuela's face was a mask of dignity, but Mia could see the fear in the slight tremble of her hands. Mia, what have you done? Nothing, Abuela. I swear. Mia moved to her grandmother's side, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Brenner slid a thick envelope across the table. $50,000 cash, enough for you both to start a new life somewhere, far away. All we ask is your silence about today's misunderstanding. Mia stared at the envelope. More money than they'd ever seen. Enough for proper medical care for her grandmother. Enough for school, for safety. Her grandmother's weathered hand reached out, not toward the money, but to Mia's face, cupping her cheek. Mi pequeña, what is happening? Before Mia could answer, her eyes caught something on the table. A photograph had slipped partially out of Brenner's open handbag. A familiar face smiled up at her. Her father. Not in his maintenance uniform, but in a lab coat. Standing beside Leslie Brenner, both smiling, both wearing ID badges with the Rebirth Foundation logo. The world tilted beneath Mia's feet as pieces clicked into place. Her father hadn't just been a janitor who discovered something. He had been part of it, part of them. Until he wasn't. With sudden clarity, Mia understood why the security guard had really brought her here. Not to save her grandmother, to corner them both. Her eyes met her grandmother's, and in that silent exchange, she saw that the old woman understood too. With deliberate slowness, Abuela reached for the money. And then, with strength Mia didn't know she still possessed, flung the entire stack into Brenner's perfect face. We are not for sale, the old woman said, her accent thick with emotion. And neither was my son. The cascade of bills fluttered through the air like green confetti, landing on Leslie Brenner's immaculate blouse, her perfectly styled hair, and the spotless floor of the trailer. For a heartbeat, no one moved, the tableau frozen in disbelief. The man in the expensive suit half rose from his chair, his hand instinctively reaching inside his jacket. Leslie Brenner's composed mask slipped just enough to reveal the rage beneath, her nostrils flaring as she slowly brushed a $100 bill from her shoulder. That, she said, her voice dripping with venom, was an exceedingly poor decision. What did you do to my son? Abuela's voice trembled, but her spine remained straight as steel. The dignity of her bearing made the shabby trailer seem suddenly like a throne room, and her, in her faded house dress with patched elbows, its rightful queen. Brenner's lips curved into something that resembled a smile, but contained no warmth. Your son was a valued colleague who unfortunately developed ethical concerns. He chose to leave our organization. Mentirosa, Abuela spat. Rafael would never abandon his family. Never. The suited man moved with unexpected speed, grabbing Mia's arm and yanking her away from her grandmother. His grip was painful, fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to leave bruises. Mia tried to wrench free, but he twisted her arm behind her back, immobilizing her with practiced efficiency. Enough drama, he said flatly. Here's how this ends. You take the money. You leave Ohio tonight. You never speak of Coleman, rebirth, or anything you think you know. Or, he tightened his grip, making Mia gasp in pain. Or your granddaughter disappears just like her father did. Understood? The trailer door burst open with a bang that made everyone jump. Marcus stood silhouetted in the doorway, his security guard physique imposing in the small space. But what commanded attention was the small black object in his hand, a USB drive, held up like a talisman. Let her go, he said quietly, or Rafael's insurance policy goes public tonight. The suited man's grip on Mia loosened just enough for her to twist free. She scrambled to her grandmother's side, positioning herself protectively in front of the old woman. Brenner's eyes narrowed on the USB drive. That's not possible. We found everything he had. Not everything, Marcus countered. Rafael was smarter than that. He gave copies to 3 different people. Me, a reporter, and one more person you'll never find. His thumb caressed the drive meaningfully. This contains the original research protocols, the patient files, the before and after documents, everything. The suited man's hand moved toward his jacket again, but Brenner stopped him with a slight gesture. The reporter was dealt with. And now we've found you. That leaves one loose end, easily managed. Not this time. Marcus took a step forward. Because if anything happens to me, the Rodriguez family, or anyone else involved, everything gets released automatically. Cloud servers, international media, medical ethics boards worldwide. The cramped trailer seemed to shrink further as tension filled every corner. Outside, the fading daylight cast long shadows through the windows, painting everyone in shades of gold and gray. What do you want? Brenner finally asked, her voice flat. For starters, you leave this family alone. Permanently. Second, Richard Coleman gets proper medical care, not your experimental transfers. Third, I want to know what happened to Amanda Coleman. At the mention of Amanda, something flickered across Brenner's perfect features, a micro-expression so brief Mia almost missed it. Fear? Guilt? It was gone before she could identify it. Amanda is taking a well-deserved rest at our Swiss wellness facility, Brenner replied smoothly. The transition to CEO was proving stressful for her. Liar, Mia said quietly, the words slipping out before she could stop herself. All eyes turned to her, and she felt her grandmother's hand tighten on her shoulder in warning. But something had clicked in her mind, a connection forming between scattered pieces. She found out, didn't she? About what you're doing to her grandfather, about the transfers. Brenner's smile was a cold, brittle thing. You're a very imaginative child, but you're playing in matters far beyond your comprehension. Raphael's last message, Marcus said, his eyes never leaving Brenner. It wasn't about the protocols, it was about Amanda. She contacted him, didn't she? After finding evidence of what you were doing. The suited man's patience visibly frayed. This is pointless. We can't. Shut up, Davis, Brenner snapped. She smoothed her expression and recalibrated, addressing Marcus with renewed composure. Here's my counteroffer. The Rodriguez family relocates, at our expense, to a comfortable home in a state of their choosing. Full documentation provided, naturalization fast-tracked. The grandmother receives complete medical care for life. The girl gets an education at whatever school she qualifies for. All very legal, very above board. And in exchange? Mia asked, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. You surrender all copies of Raphael's evidence, sign non-disclosure agreements, and forget you ever heard of Rebirth Foundation. Marcus's expression revealed nothing. And Coleman. Amanda? Family matters, Brenner replied dismissively. None of your concern. The walls of the trailer seemed to close in, the air thick with unspoken threats and moral compromise. Mia looked at her grandmother, the woman who had raised her, who had worked her fingers to the bone selling soup just to keep them fed, who had never once sacrificed her principles even when it would have made life easier. Then she looked at the photograph still visible in Brenner's bag. Her father's smile, the one she'd missed every day for 3 years. A smile that had vanished because he'd refused to be part of whatever dark science Rebirth was pursuing. "We don't want your money," Mia said, her young voice cutting through the tension. "We want justice for my father, and for whoever else you've hurt." Abuela squeezed her hand in silent support. Marcus nodded almost imperceptibly, then addressed Brenner. "You have until morning to release Amanda Coleman and cease all treatments on Richard Coleman. After that, the files go public." "You're making a catastrophic mistake," Brenner said, her composure finally cracking to reveal the fury beneath. "Do you have any idea who you're threatening? The power of the people behind Rebirth?" "I know exactly who I'm threatening," Marcus replied. "I've watched them for 3 years. Rich, powerful people terrified of the one thing their money can't beat: time." He held up the USB drive again. "But here's what you don't understand. Raphael didn't just document your protocols. He documented where the money goes, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the bribes, everything." Davis swore under his breath. Brenner's face drained of color. "Now get out of their home," Marcus finished. For a moment, it seemed like they might refuse. Davis's hand twitched toward his jacket again. But Brenner collected herself with visible effort and stood, gathering her scattered money with precise movements. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "You've made enemies you can't begin to comprehend." After they left, the trailer felt suddenly vast and empty despite the 3 people remaining. Mia's legs gave out and she sank into a chair, the adrenaline crash making her limbs feel like water. Her grandmother's weathered hand stroked her hair, a familiar gesture from childhood that unleashed a flood of tears Mia hadn't known she was holding back. "What happens now?" she asked between sobs. Marcus looked down at the USB drive in his palm, his expression grim. "Now we need to find somewhere safe. They'll be back, with more people and fewer words." "My brother's still in Mexico," Mia whispered. "If they know about Abuela." "They know everything," Marcus confirmed. "Your father, he tried to protect you all, but they've had 3 years to track down everyone connected to him." Abuela straightened, her dignity undiminished by fear. "There is one place we could go. My cousin in Detroit. They won't know about her. She married and changed her name after we lost touch. I found her again only last month through the church network." Marcus nodded. "It's a start. Pack only what you absolutely need. We leave in 10 minutes. As Mia hurriedly gathered their meager essentials, she caught sight of something she'd missed earlier, a small shrine in the corner of her grandmother's room. A candle, a crucifix, and a photograph of her father, surrounded by dried flowers. The candle had burned out, its wax hardened in a pool of white. How long had it been since her grandmother had lit it? Since she'd allowed herself to hope? Mia touched the cold wax with her fingertip. "I'll find out what happened to you, Papa," she whispered. "I promise." The motel room smelled of industrial disinfectant and decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of air freshener could disguise. Outside, the neon sign buzzed and flickered, casting an intermittent red glow through the thin curtains. Mia sat cross-legged on one of the twin beds, watching Marcus pace the worn carpet between the door and the bathroom. 3 days had passed since they'd fled the trailer park. 3 days of constantly moving, switching vehicles and sleeping in places that charged by the hour and asked no questions. Her grandmother dozed fitfully on the other bed, exhaustion finally overcoming her vigilance. "The story's getting traction," Tessa Wilson said, gesturing to her laptop screen. The reporter, A woman with sharp eyes and a scar along her jawline had met them at this roadside motel 40 miles outside Detroit. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she continued. 6 local outlets have picked up my initial piece about alleged irregularities at Rebirth. The medical ethics angle is drawing attention. Marcus stopped pacing long enough to look over her shoulder. But nothing about the transfers yet? I'm building to it, Tessa replied. Can't drop the bombshell without establishing credibility first. Right now it reads like a financial corruption story. Shady funding, questionable research protocols, potential FDA violations. Mia hugged her knees to her chest. The adults were talking as if she weren't there. Their voices kept low to avoid waking Abuela. The weight of her father's legacy pressed down on her shoulders, the USB drive with his evidence now securely copied to Tessa's encrypted servers. What about Amanda Coleman? Mia asked, causing both adults to look up, seemingly surprised to be reminded of her presence. Have you found her? Tessa's expression softened slightly. Nothing concrete yet. Her social media went dark 6 weeks ago. No credit card activity, no phone records. It's like she vanished. Like my father, Mia said quietly. An uncomfortable silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the ancient air conditioner struggling against the summer heat. Tessa and Marcus exchanged a look that Mia couldn't quite interpret. Concern, maybe, or resignation. There's something you should know, Tessa finally said, turning her laptop so Mia could see the screen. I've been digging into your father's background at Rebirth. He wasn't just a maintenance worker who stumbled onto their secrets. He was recruited specifically. The screen showed a personnel file with her father's photograph. His employment title, Research Assistant Cellular Regeneration Division. I don't understand, Mia whispered. He was a civil engineer, not a doctor or scientist. Marcus sat heavily on the edge of the bed. They didn't want him for his medical knowledge. They wanted him for his desperation. He rubbed his face, suddenly looking much older than his years. Rebirth targeted immigrants with advanced degrees but no legal status. People with education and skills who couldn't get proper jobs. People who would accept lower pay and fewer questions because they had no alternatives. Tessa scrolled to another document. According to these records, Raphael was initially hired as maintenance staff. But when they discovered his engineering background and aptitude for understanding complex systems, they promoted him. He had a talent for spotting patterns, for seeing how things connected, which is exactly why he eventually realized what they were really doing, Marcus added. A soft tap at the door made them all freeze. Marcus moved silently to the peephole, his hand reaching inside his jacket. After a tense moment, his shoulders relaxed. He opened the door to reveal a slight, elderly man with thinning white hair and round glasses. Professor Emerson, a biochemist who had agreed to review the technical data from Raphael's files. I've completed my analysis, the professor said without preamble, placing his worn leather briefcase on the small table by the window. His fingers trembled slightly as he extracted a folder. And I'm afraid what you've uncovered is even more disturbing than you realized. He spread several charts across the table. The transfer protocol isn't just theoretical. They've actually done it. They've found a way to transfer cellular regenerative capacity from one human to another. In English, Professor, Tessa urged. They're taking years from the young and giving them to the old, he replied bluntly. The donor subjects, primarily young, healthy individuals with compromised legal status, experience accelerated aging, cellular deterioration, and cognitive decline. Meanwhile, the recipients, all wealthy individuals over 60, show remarkable rejuvenation markers. Mia felt sick. That's why they targeted immigrants, people who wouldn't be missed, people whose premature aging could be attributed to hard living or poor genetics. The professor nodded grimly. Precisely. And based on these progression charts, the process is accelerating. Early transfers might have taken a year off the donor to give a month to the recipient. But their latest protocol, he tapped a graph with a trembling finger, shows a nearly 1-to-1 transfer ratio. They're stealing entire lifespans, Marcus said, his voice hollow. And Richard Coleman is their star patient, Tessa added, pulling up another file. According to these records, he's received transfers from 8 different donors over the past year. His medical charts show a biological age reduction of nearly 15 years. The implications crashed over Mia like a wave. Her father had discovered this, had tried to stop it, and they had silenced him, permanently. A low moan from the other bed signaled that Abuela was awake, her pain medication wearing off. Mia moved quickly to her side, helping her sit up and bringing her a glass of water. The old woman's hands shook as she took her pills, her eyes cloudy with fatigue and grief. "What are they saying, mi pequeña?" she asked softly in Spanish. Mia hesitated, unwilling to burden her grandmother with the full horror of what they'd learned. "They're reviewing Papa's research, Abuela. It's helping them understand what happened." The old woman's gaze sharpened, seeing through the evasion. "Tell me the truth. I am not made of glass." Before Mia could respond, Tessa's phone chimed with an urgent alert. The reporter snatched it up, her expression changing as she read the screen. "It's happening," she said, turning to the others. "Richard Coleman has called a press conference for tomorrow morning. The announcement says he'll be addressing transition plans for Coleman Medical Innovations and the future of the Rebirth Foundation." "They're forcing his hand," Marcus said, moving to the window to peer through a gap in the curtains. "After our threat, they're accelerating whatever they had planned. Or," the professor suggested quietly, "they've already completed the final transfer." A chill ran through the room despite the summer heat. If Coleman had been fully treated, there would be no need to maintain the pretense of his illness. No need for secrecy about the Foundation's work. They could present it as a miraculous medical breakthrough, the culmination of Coleman's life's work, and any evidence to the contrary would die with Amanda Coleman and the unnamed donors whose years had been stolen. "We need to stop that press conference," Mia said, her young voice steady with conviction. The adults exchanged glances, the kind adults always share when they think a child doesn't understand the complexity of a situation. "Mia," Tessa began gently, "we can't just walk into a high-security corporate event. There will be private security, possibly police. And even if we could get in, what would we do? We need more time to compile the evidence, to build a case that can't be dismissed." "But we don't have more time," Mia insisted. "Once he makes that announcement, everything changes. They'll control the story." Her grandmother's weathered hand closed over hers. "She's right," the old woman said in English, her accent thick but her meaning clear. "My Raphael did not raise a fool. She sees what you cannot." Marcus studied Mia for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "The girl who doesn't exist," he murmured. "The one person they won't be watching for." And in that moment, as 4 pairs of adult eyes focused on her with a mixture of reluctance and hope, Mia understood that sometimes the smallest hands must carry the heaviest burdens. "I can get inside," she said. "I've done it before." Morning light filtered through the windows of Coleman Tower, catching dust motes that danced in the air of the vast atrium. Security personnel in dark suits formed a perimeter around the hastily assembled press area, their earpieces and vigilant gazes creating an invisible barrier between the gathering journalists and the empty podium emblazoned with the Coleman Medical Innovations logo. Mia pressed herself against the wall near the service entrance, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. The maintenance uniform Marcus had procured hung loose on her small frame, the cap pulled low over her eyes. A laminated badge clipped to her chest identified her as maintenance trainee, a position just insignificant enough that security might overlook her. "Remember," Marcus had instructed during their pre-dawn briefing, "stay invisible until the moment you need to be seen. Move with purpose, but not urgency. Look like you belong." The service corridors were a maze of utility pipes and electrical panels, the fluorescent lighting casting harsh shadows that made Mia's eyes ache after the dimness of the air ducts she'd crawled through to bypass the main security checkpoint. Tessa's voice crackled through the tiny earpiece hidden beneath her cap. "Coleman's motorcade just arrived. You have approximately 7 minutes before he reaches the atrium." Mia's fingers tightened around the USB drive in her pocket, the original, not one of the copies. Raphael's insurance policy, her talisman, her father's legacy. 6 floors above, in the executive suite where Richard Coleman was making his final preparations, Leslie Brenner would be monitoring every detail, ensuring nothing disrupted their carefully orchestrated moment of triumph. But they wouldn't be watching for a maintenance worker, a child, a ghost in the system. The plan was simple in theory. Get close enough to Coleman to show him the truth about what had been done to him, to Amanda, to all the donors whose years had been stolen. The execution, however, depended on a series of unlikely chances and perfect timing. As Mia approached the utility room that would give her access to the executive level, a security guard rounded the corner. Her blood froze. His hand instinctively moved toward his radio as he registered her small stature, her obvious youth. "Hey, what are you—" "Mr. Huxley sent me," Mia blurted, using the name of the building's facilities manager they'd researched. "The temperature controls for the press conference are malfunctioning. He said to check the executive-level thermostat immediately." The guard's hand hesitated over his radio. "Huxley sent a kid?" Mia straightened her shoulders, channeling every ounce of her grandmother's dignity. "I'm an intern. My father works in HVAC. Mr. Huxley said it was urgent. The cameras will overheat if we don't fix it before the conference." The lie tumbled from her lips with surprising ease, bolstered by the specific details Marcus had coached her to include. Technical jargon, a plausible connection, urgency without panic. After what felt like an eternity, the guard nodded. "Fine. But be quick. Nobody's supposed to be up there once Coleman arrives." With a shaking hand, Mia swiped the access card Marcus had programmed. The utility room door unlocked with a soft click, and she slipped inside, heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. "I'm in," she whispered into her concealed microphone. "Good," Tessa's voice replied. "The executive elevator is at the back of the utility room. It'll take you directly to Coleman's office suite. 5 minutes remaining." The elevator hummed softly as it ascended, the digital display tracking Mia's journey toward a confrontation 3 years in the making. Her palms were slick with sweat, her mouth dry as desert sand. What if Coleman refused to listen? What if security caught her before she could show him the evidence? What if Brenner had already anticipated this move? The doors slid open to reveal a hushed corridor of gleaming hardwood and tasteful artwork. Voices drifted from an open door at the end of the hall, tense, urgent voices. "Vital that you stick to the approved statement, Richard. Nothing about Amanda. Nothing about the treatment specifics." "I'm not senile, Leslie." Coleman's voice was stronger than Mia remembered from the hotel suite, tinged with irritation. "I understand what's at stake." "Do you? Because your granddaughter didn't. And look where that got her." Mia froze, pressing herself against the wall beside the doorway, hardly daring to breathe. Through the crack, she could see Coleman standing before a mirror, adjusting his tie. The man who had seemed so frail days before now stood straight and vital, his skin less pallid, his movements precise. The transfer was complete. "Don't speak of Amanda," Coleman said, his voice hardening. "That was never part of our agreement." "Agreements evolve," Brenner replied coolly, "as do the consequences of breaking them." A third voice joined the conversation, the silver-templed man from the hotel. 2 minutes, Richard. The press is assembled." Mia's window was closing. In moments, they would leave for the atrium, surrounded by security, beyond her reach. She had one chance now, before everything her father had fought for was buried forever. Drawing a deep breath, she stepped into the doorway. "Mr. Coleman," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Do you remember me?" 3 heads whipped toward her in perfect synchronization. Coleman's eyes widened in recognition, Brenner's face contorted with fury. The silver-templed man reached inside his jacket with practiced efficiency. "The delivery girl," Coleman said softly, with the sad eyes. "Security breach." The silver-templed man barked into his radio. "Executive level, North Corridor." Brenner lunged toward Mia, but Coleman raised a hand, stopping her. "Wait, let her speak." "There's no time for this," Brenner hissed. "The press—" "Will wait," Coleman finished firmly. His gaze never left Mia's face. "What are you doing here, child?" Mia reached into her pocket and withdrew the USB drive, holding it out like an offering. "This belongs to my father, Rafael Rodriguez. He worked for you, for rebirth. He discovered what they were doing, what they did to you." Coleman's expression remained unreadable, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or doubt. "Your father," he repeated slowly. "The maintenance worker who disappeared." "He wasn't just maintenance," Mia pressed on, words tumbling out as she heard the distant sound of running footsteps. "He was an engineer. He figured out how the transfers worked, how they were taking years from people like him and giving them to people like you." "That's enough," Brenner snapped, moving toward the door. "Security will escort this delusional child out." But Coleman raised his hand again, his piercing blue eyes, so like his missing granddaughter's, fixed on Mia. "Continue." "They've done something to Amanda," Mia said, the words rushing out now. "The same thing they did to my father when he tried to expose them. And now they're going to make you announce it as a breakthrough, make it seem legitimate when really it's theft," Coleman finished softly. "They're stealing time." Brenner's composure cracked. "Richard, this is absurd. We need to get to the press conference. Davis, remove this girl immediately." The silver-templed man, Davis, moved forward, but Coleman stepped between them, taking the USB drive from Mia's outstretched hand. "What's on this?" "Everything," Mia whispered. "The protocols. The donor files, the offshore accounts, and—" She hesitated, then pressed on. "Surveillance footage from the night my father disappeared." Coleman's fingers closed around the drive just as security burst through the door, weapons drawn. Brenner's face was a mask of cold fury as she pointed at Mia. "Arrest this intruder," she ordered, "and seize that drive." But Coleman slipped the device into his pocket, his expression hardening as he looked at the woman who had been his goddaughter, his trusted advisor, the architect of his seeming miracle. "No, Leslie. I think it's time I saw exactly what I've been signing my name to." And in that moment, as security hesitated between conflicting orders, as Brenner's perfect composure finally shattered completely, as Coleman stood tall with the weight of a terrible truth in his pocket, Mia saw her father's courage reflected in the most unexpected place. The eyes of the man whose life had been extended at the cost of so many others. "The press is waiting," Coleman said quietly. "But I believe they'll be hearing a very different announcement than the one you prepared." Sometimes the most powerful moments in life aren't shaped by those with wealth or influence, but by a single voice brave enough to speak truth in a room full of lies. Mia Rodriguez wasn't just delivering soup that day. She was delivering courage, justice, and a reminder that even the most invisible among us can change the course of history with 3 simple words. Don't sign that. What would you have done in Mia's position? Would you have stayed silent, accepting that the world works a certain way and that people like you don't get to change it? Or would you have found that same spark of bravery, that unwavering belief that what's right matters more than what's safe? In a world that often values wealth over worth and power over principle, Mia's story reminds us that our true legacy isn't measured in years added to our lives, but in the courage we show when facing impossible odds. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about the power of speaking up, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Follow our channel for more stories that explore the extraordinary courage of ordinary people. And leave a comment telling us about a time when you chose to speak up instead of staying silent. Because in the end, it's not the years in our life that matter most. It's the life in our years and how we use them to stand up for what's right.